All right, now let me ask, I guess, what a lot of people are probably thinking. This is a great history lesson, and a lot of us didn't know anything about it. But is that all it is? Or is there anything we can genuinely learn from it that might make our own lives better today?
I mean, that's another great question.
I'm good at that, by the way. That's why I'm
Yeah,
here.
I noticed. I noticed. I do look at it from two perspectives. Actually, I do on one hand see it as a nice kind of niche piece of history that is interesting to visitors to Ireland and Irish people alike. But I wouldn't be motivated to be putting the sort of work that I am putting into it unless I felt that there was some sort of like practical payoff for today's society. There are a couple of features. I mean, I think changing our attitude in the courts from retribution to restitution would be one of them. Maybe a greater focus on like reputation-based outcomes to disputes. That's another one. But one hugely important one that I'm sure you'll love and your listeners to your show will love is that we didn't have a centralized body of judges. Like we didn't have a panel of Supreme Court judges who got put into that position because they favoured the current political establishment or anything like that. In fact, the judges were very independent. It was like they had their own trade or their own craft. So one argument that I would make for today's society that could greatly improve what we're doing is to have judicial market opening. Today, if you commit an offence, you're brought before a judge. You have no idea who this judge is. You don't know if he's a good man, a bad man, or what his predisposition is towards you or your background or your race or anything like that. You're just put in front of a man, he's wearing a black dress, and he's going to tell you what to do. But in Ireland, a defendant, actually, I should point out, it wasn't the victim, it was the defendant picked who the judge would be over a given situation. This created an incentive in judges not to have the most political favour, but actually to be the best at interpreting the principles of the society, of the community that were made by those people, customary law, in a way that was conducive to finding the proper remedy. So if you wanted to be a wealthy judge, or if you wanted to get a lot of business, well, then you had to develop a reputation where you were the fairest, you were impartial, you were unbiased, and you were best at interpreting those laws.
All right, hold on, but let me jump in there. Are you telling me that the defendant could choose the judge? Then wouldn't that give us a judge who would tend to be biased in favor of defendants?
That's yeah. Well, if the judge happened to be the reason why the defendant picked the judge is because it was like another feature of fairness, if you want. Like, I'm going to accuse you of stealing from me, and you're going to say, well, I'm going to pick this judge over here because I know he has a good reputation. But the judge also stood to suffer a loss if he gave an incorrect or an unfair or inaccurate judgment. So if you and I had a dispute, which I hope we never will, but if we did, we could go and consult a Brehon. He would have to put up a portion of the amount being disputed, which was about a third of the amount. So he actually stood to lose financially, first of all, reputationally, second of all. And if he did lose his reputation, then he's losing his business. So even in the case where the defendant picked the judge still had an incentive to be fair. Where this comes into I think is most interesting is if you were a foreigner to my TUA, to my economic hub, and we had a dispute, even as an outsider, you still had the right to pick who would be the judge and oversee the case.